The dawn light filtered through the canopy of towering pines and ancient hemlocks, gentle beams illuminating the forest floor in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. A hush lay over the land in these early hours. Even the birds, so prolific at sunrise, seemed momentarily subdued. In the midst of this stillness, a young man named Aaron Templeton found himself trudging along a narrow trail, a worn canvas pack slung over his shoulder. Aaron had come to the Smokies in search of something he couldn't quite name, perhaps closure, perhaps peace, perhaps a deeper connection to life itself. A few months earlier, he had lost his job and, in rapid succession, discovered his mother's illness had grown worse. When she passed, grief hollowed him out. He needed to step away from the humdrum routine of the city and the ache in his chest. So, he filled a backpack with the bare essentials, withdrew what little savings he had, and set off for the solitude of this mountainous region that straddled the border of Tennessee and North Carolina. He had been hiking for days, wandering different trails, sometimes forging a path where none existed. His carefully measured food supply was nearly gone. The final slice of bread he carried was more symbolic than truly nutritious, a stale, flattened piece, carefully wrapped in a plastic bag. Yet Aaron refused to discard it. Something about it reminded him of the fragility of life, a reminder of how close he felt to letting go of hope. And hope was the only thing he clung to out here. Hope for renewal, for the faint possibility that tomorrow might be kinder. He paused at a cluster of large boulders by a bend in the stream. The water here was clear and swift, swirling around mossy rocks. He crouched down and cupped his hands, taking small sips of the frigid mountain water. As the cold, fresh taste slid down his throat, he allowed himself a momentary relief. All around, the forest breathed. He could smell the rich scent of the earth, laced with pine needles and moist lichen. A woodpecker's rhythmic tapping echoed in the distance. Aaron exhaled slowly, letting the tension in his shoulders slip away until a flash of movement at the edge of his vision startled him. Instinctively, he froze, waiting for his eyes to focus. Amid a patch of ferns just beyond the clearing, he caught a glimpse of thick brown fur. A bear. It was an American black bear, though its coat was more of a dark chocolate hue than pitch black. The bear was not large enough to be a fully mature male, perhaps a younger adult or a small female. It stood motionless, watching him from a distance. Aaron's heart rate spiked, his breath catching in his chest. He had read countless pamphlets cautioning hikers about bears in the park, telling them to keep a safe distance and never, ever feed them. Yet there was something off about this bear's stance, something that broke his usual sense of caution. The bear seemed underweight, its ribs faintly visible under its fur. Its eyes were wide and gleaming, but not with aggression or curiosity alone. There was a gauntness, a desperation. The forest had endured an unusual winter, with unexpected temperature fluctuations that might have affected the local food supply. The animal was hungry, and hunger had driven it closer to human presence than was typical. Aaron wanted to do the responsible thing, slowly back away, keep his distance, maybe make some noise to discourage it from approaching. But he could not ignore the creature's condition. It reminded him of how he felt inside, a quiet, gnawing hunger for what was lost, for the solace he couldn't find. The bear stepped tentatively forward, then hesitated. Its muzzle quivered, and it let out a rasping whine that broke Aaron's heart. He still had that last piece of bread. He swallowed, torn between caution and compassion. He knew it wasn't wise to feed wild animals, knew there were rules in place for good reason. Still, as he looked at that ragged, starved-looking bear, he found himself unzipping the top pocket of his pack. His fingertips grazed the plastic bag containing that single slice of bread, the very last bite of food he had. It felt symbolic somehow, an act that would either doom him to hunger or mark a strange kind of communion with nature. With trembling hands, he removed the slice. He took a step forward, his boots cracking through leaf litter. The bear stepped back, uncertain. Aaron slowly crouched down, extending the bread in an open palm. Something like electricity crackled between them. For a moment, man and bear locked eyes, two creatures in pain, seeking nourishment, one spiritual, the other physical. The bear snuffled, inching closer, nostrils flaring. Cautiously, it opened its jaws, teeth gently scraping Aaron's palm, and seized the piece of bread. The sensation made Aaron's heart thunder with a mix of fear and awe. When the bear consumed the morsel, it turned its eyes back to Aaron. In that silent exchange, there was a reciprocity that transcended logic and rules, a bond of empathy, a spark of shared existence. A tear slipped down Aaron's cheek, surprising him. He realized how many nights he had kept his tears bottled up, afraid to let go, afraid that once they began, they might never stop. Here he was, in the middle of the forest, sharing his final piece of food with a starving bear, and something in that moment punctured his emotional dam. He sank onto his knees, tears coursing down his face, as the bear licked at crumbs on the ground. In the distance, a rustle of leaves made the bear's ears perk up. Aaron's tears blurred his vision, but he heard movement, something bigger maybe, or perhaps it was just the wind. The bear froze, then scurried into the thick undergrowth. Before it vanished, the animal turned one last time, meeting Aaron's eyes with a haunted, grateful look. He would swear, in years to come, that the bear had nodded, or something like it, and then it was gone. Aaron remained crouched there, shivering. A flood of emotion overtook him. Sorrow, relief, fear, and an unexpected warmth of connection. He had done something incredibly foolish yet inexplicably necessary. He didn't know why that choice made him feel lighter inside, yet it did. With his food supply now completely gone, Aaron's hunger returned in force that afternoon. As he continued along the trail, his stomach growled angrily. He tried not to dwell on what the upcoming night might bring. He had planned on heading back to a small settlement on the outskirts of the park the following day, but had miscalculated the length of his route. Even with decent speed, it would be 2 days, maybe more, before he reached that outpost. As the sun began to set, the sky turned hues of tangerine and lavender. Evening shadows stretched across the forest floor. Aaron scanned the area for a safe place to camp. He found a level patch of ground near a stand of hardwood trees and carefully set down his pack. Stringing up a small tarp for shelter, he used paracord to hang it between two sturdy branches. Dusk brought with it an unseasonable chill, and he zipped himself into a worn fleece jacket. He tried to ignore the pangs in his stomach, focusing instead on gathering wood for a small fire. The ritual of collecting sticks, fallen branches, and tinder gave him a semblance of purpose. When the flames finally caught and grew, casting flickering shadows on nearby tree trunks, he sank down and placed his palms near the warmth. The night forest came alive with its own chorus of sounds, owls hooting in the distance, the rasp of insects, and the crackle of the fire. Memories of his mother intruded on this quiet, her warm voice, her comforting presence, how she had taught him to be kind, to give even if you only had little. It was through her example that he had felt compelled to feed the desperate bear. She would have done the same, consequences be damned. But with the memory came a fresh pang of grief, one that twisted tight in his chest. Gripping his knees, Aaron allowed the tears to flow again. The solitude of the woods felt like a protective shroud, permitting him to feel everything he had suppressed for too long. He must have dozed off eventually, because he awoke to a soft scuffling sound at the edge of his campsite. The fire had waned to embers, releasing only a dull red glow. His eyes darted around, adjusting to the darkness. At first, he suspected another wild creature, maybe a raccoon rummaging for scraps, or even another bear. But then he heard a muffled voice, heart pounding. Aaron scrambled upright, grabbing his flashlight. He flicked the beam into the night, the abrupt brightness illuminating the trees. A figure flinched back, hands raised. "Whoa, whoa, don't shoot," came a hushed voice. Aaron's heart settled slightly. This was no ranger or official. The man looked haggard, possibly homeless. His clothes were dirty, his face half hidden beneath a scraggly beard. "I'm not armed," Aaron said quietly, lowering the flashlight. "You startled me. Who are you?" The man cleared his throat. "Name's Rick. I was just looking for a place to spend the night, maybe some food." He shrugged apologetically. "Didn't mean to sneak up on you." Aaron scanned the man's expression. He couldn't sense aggression, only desperation. This forest apparently harbored more than one soul grappling with the rigors of survival. Part of Aaron wanted to keep to himself. He had no food, no real supplies to spare. But then he recalled his mother's teachings, and the bear, earlier that day. Compassion, even when there's almost nothing left to give. "Don't worry about it," Aaron said. "You can share the sight. I don't have much in the way of food, though." Rick's face fell momentarily. He nodded in understanding. "I see. Then I'll be on my way." Something in Rick's voice wavered, a subtle tremor of defeat that Aaron recognized all too clearly. In that moment, he realized how universal suffering could be. He gestured to the flickering embers. "At least sit by the fire for a while. Warmer than out there." Rick hesitated, then shuffled forward, settling near the dying flames. They spoke haltingly at first, but soon conversation flowed. Rick explained how he had tried to start fresh in another state, only to lose his construction job. With no prospects or family to help, he drifted. He turned to the wilderness because it felt safer than the city streets. As they talked, Aaron realized that in their separate ways, both he and Rick were seeking something beyond their own isolation, human connection, or any sign that they were not alone in this unforgiving world. It was a strange camaraderie that grew in the flickering shadows. Eventually, the pair succumbed to exhaustion. Rick stretched out on one side of the fire, with a makeshift blanket. Aaron curled under his tarp. In the fleeting moments before sleep claimed him, Aaron recalled the bear's face once more, its dark, sorrowful eyes. A lingering question stirred in his mind. Would that bear survive the night without more to eat? Or had that single piece of bread, offered in a moment of compassion, truly made a difference? Morning arrived wrapped in a thick, wet fog. The world was muted. Trees vanished into a gray haze, and every step felt heavy with dew. Aaron and Rick broke camp in silence, each acknowledging a day of uncertain prospects. They exchanged a few polite words before parting ways. "Be safe out there," Aaron said, and Rick gave a small wave in return. The hush of the forest swallowed them both. Aaron proceeded along the trail, trying to maintain a brisk pace. His body felt weak, hunger gnawed at his ribs. His mind drifted back to the city, to regrets, to unfinished goodbyes. But he steered his thoughts to the road ahead. Perhaps he would find some berries, or scrounge for edible plants along the route. It was no guarantee, especially in this rugged terrain. The trail led upward, across a steep ridge dotted with mountain laurels that had begun to bloom. Their faint pink and white petals stood out against the evergreen backdrop, a bright display of nature's resilience. Despite his empty stomach, Aaron took solace in the simple beauty around him. The air smelled of damp earth and pine resin, a rich, vibrant scent that made him feel oddly alive despite his exhaustion. Hours passed, the sun climbing high in the sky, burning off the mist and revealing long stretches of the valley below. As Aaron crested the ridge, he paused for a moment to catch his breath. An expansive view unfurled before him, rolling hills, distant peaks, and a scattering of billowing clouds overhead. The scene revived, a spark of hope. He remembered a portion of Robert Frost's poem about the woods being lovely, dark, and deep. He felt that old, restless yearning for something more, some promise that life could move on from the darkness and into the light. He was about to continue when a movement in the corner of his eye drew him up short. Down the slope, at the tree line, he saw a small figure. Instantly, he recognized the shape, the same bear from the previous day. Or at least, it looked remarkably similar, the same scrawny frame, the same tentative gait. The bear glanced up in his direction, as if sensing his presence. A moment of awareness seemed to pass between them. Aaron's heart pounded. There was no bread left to offer now. He was as helpless as the bear. But even so, he felt a surge of concern. Was it following him? Had it learned to associate him with food? This wasn't safe for either of them. Yet, as he stared down, the animal did not advance. Instead, it let out a soft, plaintive moan, almost a cry. Aaron wondered if it was in pain. For a moment, he stood there, torn. Common sense told him to move on quickly, to avoid provoking another encounter. But compassion, something deeper, perhaps the remnants of his mother's spirit, urged him to investigate. He made his way down the slope, taking cautious steps. The bear didn't run this time. Instead, it sank onto its haunches, head drooping low. When Aaron got closer, he could see why. The bear's forepaw was caught in a snare. A loop of rusted metal wire dug into its fur and flesh, tethering the animal to a stout sapling. Aaron felt a wave of anger. Illegal traps sometimes dotted these remote woods, set by poachers or unscrupulous hunters. The bear was trembling, its fur matted with dirt. The metal had cut into the paw, leaving a raw, open wound. Chest tight, Aaron lifted his hands in what he hoped was a calming gesture. "Easy now," he whispered, heart hammering in his chest. "I'm not here to hurt you," the bear whimpered, pinned in place, unable to flee. Its dark eyes flicked to Aaron, then to its bound paw, as if pleading for help. Aaron crouched a few feet away, rummaging in his pack for anything that could free the snare. He found a small multi-tool with pliers, though he doubted it was strong enough to cut through thick wire. Still, he had to try. He inched forward. The bear's breathing quickened, eyes wide with fear. Aaron's own breath came in shallow bursts. One swipe of those claws, or a bite, could injure or kill him. He could practically hear his mother's voice. "Don't be reckless, but never stop caring." Slowly, gingerly, he extended the multi-tool. It was a clumsy process, trying to keep his body clear of the bear's mouth while manipulating the wire. The bear let out a warning huff when Aaron's hand brushed too close, but it didn't lash out. Perhaps it recognized, on some instinctual level, that he meant to help. The wire was corroded, loops twisted tightly around the paw. With painstaking effort, Aaron managed to loosen one coil, then another. The pliers slipped, nearly pinching him. His arms trembled with exertion. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the wire gave way. The bear jerked its paw free, yelping in pain. Aaron stumbled back, fear clenching his gut. Would the bear attack now that it was free? Gasping, he braced for the worst. But the animal merely recoiled, collapsing onto its side and panting. The front paw bled in small rivulets. Without thinking, Aaron rummaged in his pack for a clean cloth and his tiny first aid kit. He moistened the cloth with water and crept closer. The bear eyed him warily. Every survival instinct screamed that he should keep his distance, but empathy overruled. Carefully, he dabbed at the wound, cleaning away dirt and blood. The bear let out a low moan but did not resist. Aaron applied an antiseptic wipe to the gash, feeling a pang of guilt as the animal flinched. "I'm sorry," he whispered, tears brimming again. "I wish I had more than this." His supplies were laughably insufficient for such a wound, but perhaps it would help prevent infection. When he was finished, the bear stood unsteadily, testing its injured paw. It looked at Aaron with what he could only interpret as gratitude. It gave a soft snort, then turned and slowly limped toward the cover of the forest. Aaron sank to his knees, tears spilling down his cheeks in earnest. Seeing a wounded, helpless creature in so much pain, and seeing it trust him in that moment, pierced straight to the core of his own grief and sense of loss. That sense of helplessness, of humility in the face of something so raw and real, unlatched the final barrier around his pent-up sorrow. He sobbed, unashamed, the tears coursing down his face, washing away some hidden burden. He wept for his mother, for his shattered life, for the starving bear he had fed, for the wounded bear he had freed. Two acts of compassion, so small in the grand scheme of things, yet they illuminated a path he had not seen before. A path of resilience, yes, but also of connection. Aaron eventually made his way back to the trail, shoulders shaking with the aftershocks of raw emotion. As he pressed onward, he felt somehow lighter, as if that profound release had carved out space inside his heart for hope to flourish again. His legs wobbled with hunger, but his mind buzzed with renewed clarity. There was a simple truth he had discovered in these woods, that one does not need to be strong or fearless to show compassion. One needs only to be open and willing to help when the moment calls. Over the next day and a half, he walked with a singular focus, reaching that outpost, a tiny settlement called Smokemont, near the edge of the park, where he could secure food and possibly lodging. The last stretch felt punishing, but memory of the bear's soft, grateful eyes spurred him onward. He recalled the tears that had come so unexpectedly from his own eyes, unearthing sorrow, but also layering in a strangely comforting sense of purpose. When he finally arrived in Smokemont, the sun was setting, painting the horizon in molten gold. A small general store, Puckett's Provisions, bore a faded sign. The quaint structure looked like it had been there for decades, with chipped wooden siding and a porch that creaked underfoot. Aaron let out a shaky breath and pushed open the door. Warm lamplight bathed rows of canned goods, snacks, and basic necessities. The clerk, an older man in a flannel shirt, greeted Aaron with an easy smile. "You look hungry, friend. Long trek?" "You could say that." Aaron's voice cracked. I ran out of food a while ago." The man nodded, leaning over the counter with a sympathetic expression. "Well, get what you need, and we'll sort you out. Name's Harold. You passing through or heading somewhere?" Aaron grabbed a few items: bread, peanut butter, a bottle of water. He considered the meager amount of cash he had left. This would likely deplete his funds, but he reminded himself that, for now, his immediate need was survival. On top of that, he felt an odd sense of empowerment, that somehow all his experiences in the forest, feeding the hungry bear, freeing the wounded one, confronting his own grief, had led him right here, with a renewed sense of what truly mattered. When he brought his selections to the counter, Harold raised a brow at the total. "We take cards, if you need it," he offered. "Cash is all I have," Aaron replied, handing over a small wad of bills. It wasn't enough to pay for everything. The clerk noticed, counting the money with careful slowness. After a moment, Harold set the items in a paper bag and pushed it across to Aaron. "You know what? This is enough. Times are tough for everyone, right?" Aaron felt his eyes prick with tears yet again. "Thank you," he managed, voice thick. He left the store, cradling the paper bag, a sense of quiet amazement filling him. Outside, the night breeze smelled of a welcoming hearth somewhere. He realized, in that moment, how one act of kindness could ripple outward. He had offered bread to a starving bear, then risked danger to free another. He had encountered Rick and shared warmth and conversation. Now Harold was extending that chain of goodwill. It felt like the forest itself was alive with unseen connections, weaving them into a tapestry that transcended species, backgrounds, or brokenness. That night, Aaron settled into a small room above the general store, courtesy of Harold's suggestion. It was tiny and modest, with a single bed and a creaking rocking chair by the window. The walls were adorned with old photographs of the Smoky Mountains in black and white. As he lay down, exhaustion carried him swiftly into a deep sleep. His dreams were vivid. He saw his mother, smiling beside a roaring campfire, offering him a warm loaf of homemade bread. Next to her, a thin, dark, furred bear waited expectantly. In the dream, the bear spoke in a gentle, resonant voice, telling him he was not alone. Aaron listened, tears streaming down his dream self's face, comforted by the presence of both mother and bear. When dawn arrived, he awoke with red-rimmed eyes, but a renewed sense of peace. Glancing out the window, he watched the mist dancing above the treetops. For the first time in a long while, he felt a cautious optimism about the path ahead. Whether that path led him back to the city or onto another winding trail was yet to be decided. But he felt ready to face the unknown, bolstered by the knowledge that, even in the depths of despair, moments of compassion and connection could light a spark of hope. It was that morning, as he packed his things and prepared to move on, that the moment of realization came. He had wept, not just from sadness, but from gratitude. Gratitude to the forest for showing him, so vividly, that one doesn't have to be free of pain to lend a hand to another being in need. In those moments of giving, of offering that last piece of bread to a hungry bear, of freeing that bear from a cruel snare, he had found a hidden reservoir of strength in himself. It was a testament to resilience, to the power of empathy that spans every boundary humans try to construct. On his way out, Harold nodded goodbye from the doorway of Puckett's Provisions. Aaron paused and took a deep breath of the morning air. His eyes wandered toward the edge of the forest, half hoping he might glimpse a dark shape moving through the trees. It was silly, perhaps, but he yearned for a sign that the bear was healing, that it too could find its path through these rugged hills. He saw nothing but swaying branches, yet he smiled through a lump in his throat, sensing that the forest was watching, listening, and in that unspoken dialogue, he felt the presence of something vast and quietly benevolent. Call it nature, call it faith, call it the spirit of life itself. There would still be challenges ahead, rebuilding his life, finding stable work, grappling with the lingering ache of his mother's absence. But for now, he stepped onto the road with his backpack and his renewed heart, carrying with him the memory of that profound exchange, one last piece of bread, given to a hungry bear, and the tears that followed, cleansing him of despair, bridging a gentle bond between two solitary creatures in the wild. And that was enough.